Thanks for joining us tonight for my exhibition, Counterpoint, at United Contemporary. We have Aaron Comeau playing for us. My exhibition is a selection of paintings and color prints exploring observation. Coincides with this year's Art Toronto, where United Contemporary is launching Architecture of Music, my portfolio of lino-cut prints on Glenn Gould, and is also launching Aaron's album Pre-Construction. Many of my paintings are created in response to Aaron's music, so it's very fitting to have him play for us in response to my work. We know each other from living on Lower Dawes and have collaborated in the past with the live music life drawing program. In the past, a lot of my work has been, related to music very closely, the subject matter of Buddy Bolden or Glenn Gould, or, so this allows me to keep that going without exclusively talking about music or a musician as a key subject.
Right.
But your work as a musician has largely influenced the work because it's the soundtrack to my paintings for the last couple of years that we've been sort of working closely. So, and it's also in keeping with the fact that architecture and music's being launched at the same time at the fair. I like, Glenn Gould was very interested in the literal terminology of counterpoint in music, two notes going like note to note, point to point. That this is the overlap of two very different things being contrasted.
And that was his specialty almost, was his... He was
he'd have his left hand doing one thing, his right hand doing something else. And
it would sound like two different people playing, or more.
The printmaking allows me to explore a subject through different color options or through transparency or... sort of really push it towards abstraction if I can, and by doing that, in painting, I've generated a different approach to how I put things down, how physically the paint goes down, and that is a nice counterpoint unto itself, I suppose.
So in printmaking, you don't have color, you don't have touch.
Well, I began with the portfolio of black and white prints to do the project on Glenn Gould, architecture and music. And then this summer, due to the pandemic, actually, I went out to my cottage. This is interesting, is that the portfolio is about sort of Gould's relationship to solitude, but that's a very different thing than isolation. Solitude, you elect to be in solitude. In isolation, you're forced to, so to speak, in a way. But it was also interesting in a way to finally finish this project that took about 5 years to do, architecture of music, because I got a chance to actually go to my family cottage to finish the printing, and when I finally finished the portfolio, I was allowed then some time to explore color using some of the same blocks, some of the blocks that were discarded from the 95 or whatever, but I was able to explore some of the content in color and in multiple layers. So there's a lot of
layered them using different colors of ink,
but also in like several blocks are laid on top of one another as an overlay. And this was a real sort of like a period of exploration that I hadn't yet been able to do because I was so focused on getting the portfolio done, which is this exclusive narrative of 30 blocks in black and white on Glenn Gould. And this other, the printmaking that's in Counterpoint is like a much freer, far more painterly printmaking, which is it's like, let's see what happens if you do this. And, you know, some failure like we're used to, but then some success as well. Like, so you get, so it really allowed me to explore more. I wanted to ask you about your relationship to art, because whenever you refer to your own music, you refer to it as art. And I've always found that really fascinating.
Well, from a very young age, I noticed this association with sound and color, and I eventually discovered that it was a condition called synesthesia, which comes in many forms, but the way I experience it is my brain confuses sound and color. Specifically, when I hear different pitches, I see different colors in my head. For instance, D is yellow. So when I look at the main square number 17 and I see the yellow curtain coming down,
it's in the note of D.
It's in the note or the key.
D or whatever.
And so in that way, a lot of your paintings, especially these very colorful ones, look to me like scores or like graphic scores. And I look at a painting and music just begins to flow through my head. It's just a kind of gut reaction.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I've always used your music to set up a relationship to mood in my work. And I think that it's the same for you, that you rely on the mood of an artwork to then set up the pace or the tempo for the work, or whatever music terminology you want to use for that.
And you know, when a painting is done, it's static and it's there, so it very much differs from music, which is it exists on the plane of time, whereas paint is a second.
Well, I'm actually really interested in the idea of trying to have the duration of time experience within a single work, because the way that I'm working on site, and with a larger work on site, it's going to take a number of months to achieve. I'm folding in the sort of passage of the season and the different lighting conditions. So in the haptic landscape that's in this show, I've painted a part of it in early spring, a part of it midway through the spring. At the very end of the summer, I was finishing the painting. So the tree at the edge is actually a 5 p.m. late summer condition, whereas the interaction of the two homes is based on an 8:30 a.m. early spring lighting condition. This is my own way of trying to include time in the work and actually have it sort of hopefully not be static.
my album relies heavily on the context from each piece to the next, because there's a wide variety of pieces. There's a wide variety of arrangements, and it starts with kind of 3 heavy tunes, because it's at its core it's an exploration of the grief that I went through with the passing of my father, and my experience of that was very hot and raw at the beginning, and confusing and kind of anger provoking, and then it starts to cool off, but it gets confusing, and then the biggest valley of the record is when I cover John Cage's piece, his famous treatise on silence, 4 minutes and 33 seconds, where I sit in my studio, the trailer, on Dawes Road, and let the road take the stage.
I hope people will have the patience or the ability to listen to it as a whole complete project. And this is sort of also why I'm very interested in how you to refer to your music as artwork. I think that, this is a 40-minute piece. This is a curated selection of work that has got a thread to it, that's got a narrative to it, that I think is, it should be experienced with some time to it. And that's kind of what I'm hoping with also the viewing of the work, the paintings. If you have the ability to live with the painting, you'll watch it grow on you, and it will change in different lighting conditions. Certain things will show themselves, and it will sort of unfold. If you spend a bit of time in the gallery as the light changes from afternoon to evening, you're going to get a different experience too, because of this relationship to duration of time as opposed to a still moment. I want to paint the unfolding of moments, the passage of time. Even with the piece Pandemic Colors, which is like a plein air piece from the very onset of isolation in late March, it's tracking a sort of evolution of early spring. Spring is a very short month. It flickers by in 2 weeks, 4 weeks. Actually, we had a pretty long spring, which allowed me to kind of complete this painting. Otherwise, I don't think I would have. I would have just had a study instead of a finished work. But this allowed me to sort of track the conditions, the light conditions, over a period of time. And I'm hoping that I'm sort of folding that experience into the painting, that it's not a single frozen moment, but it's a dialogue about the shifting of the season, the passing of the time, the changing of the light. Counterpoint will be up at United Contemporary from October 28th to November 28th. Aaron's album, Pre-Construction, is available now. And my portfolio, Architecture and Music, is at Art Toronto this year with United Contemporary.